Yes, welcome everybody. So I am Jeanne-Marie Paynel, calling in live from San Diego, California, where it's 11 a.m. in the morning, and Simone is wrapping up her day in Amsterdam. And it's always so nice. And we were just talking about how this has been going on since 2015. So we used to be a little bit more regular. We had started very ambitiously every Friday, every last Friday of the month, and now we're doing it as it comes, right?
Exactly.
So this is, yeah.
Anna says, good evening. We missed the show. We've missed you all too. It's so nice.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, so lovely to have everybody here. So today we wanted to we always like to have a theme that we want to kind of focus on. And today we thought we would focus on independence, which is not a dirty word, right? Because I think some parents might think that, independence means ignoring your child or letting them, do things completely on their own or not connecting with them and so forth. And as you'll see, as we talk about it, it's really nuanced. And for me, independence is really a very important, how would you say, value that I think is important to give our children, to feel capable, to be able to do things for themselves. I know for myself, I really like being independent as a grown woman. And for me, independent really starts at birth. So yeah. And Simone, maybe before we get into it, do you want to do a quick little update of what you've been up to? And then I can share what I've been up to.
Absolutely. So since we last were here, I've been working mostly in my classroom. I run classes every morning at Jacaranda Tree Montessori, and that's a parent-child class. And that has been such a rich part of my life. And then for the rest, over the summer, there was a lot of work finalizing the Montessori child book, which will be coming out next March. So We're very excited. So most of the editing's been complete and it's at the printers, and we're just working on some back-end things at the moment. And we are delighted with how it turned out. So we can't wait to share that. That will be for children from 3 to 12-year-olds. And there's also a very chunky chapter on adolescents as well, so that we don't have to have another book called The Montessori Adolescent. We've covered all of that. And we're just excited that more people, how you keep applying these Montessori principles in your home once your children go to regular school. It's not a book about homeschooling at all. It's really just about how we as caregivers, parents, can continue to raise our children. So that I love actually the subtitle. It basically, to me, really encapsulates what Montessori family life is. And it's to raise capable children with creative minds and compassionate hearts. And so we're really excited to share that with you all next year. And Jeanne-Marie has been doing some very exciting work too. So Jeanne-Marie, catch us up very quickly.
So I have kind of gone more into focusing into my birth work. I trained to be a doula about 2.5 years ago and was doing it on a volunteer basis here in San Diego, and then realized that I really love this work, and that because I am so passionate about birth, but also the first 6 years of life, that this was a wonderful way to really help families understand this importance, and also just understand how powerful the birth experience is for both the parents and the child. So I have been focusing on that. And in doing so, I have actually been very involved in kind of community work here in San Diego, working with it's called Thrive Wellness Community, and it is a nonprofit organization wanting to really give access to midwifery care and holistic care to women of all socioeconomic standing. Because if you are in the United States, it's very expensive to birth outside of hospitals when you don't have insurance, or even if you have insurance. So this is what I am really focused on these days, as well as my podcast, The Art of Parenting, still producing episodes weekly, actually by twice a week this time of year. But so yeah, lots of fun things.
It sounds like beautiful work. I love it.
Yes.
And I can't wait to dive into this topic. I thought I'd just do a quick introduction to independence, because with Dr. Montessori had a framework called the 4 planes of development, which some of you may or may not know. We did a whole show on the 4 planes of development, so we'll link to that, and we'll send you an email with all the links that we talk about tonight. And the 4 planes of development is basically what Dr. Montessori observed as characteristics of children, how they're similar in different planes of development. And a plane of development is from 0 to 6 years old. She noticed that children had similar characteristics. From 6 to 12, that's the second plane. From 12 to 18, the third plane, the adolescent, and from 18 to 24. And I love that 18 to 24-year-olds are included in that 4 planes of development, because imagine in the early 1900s, when everyone mostly thought you became an adult very young, even 18, maybe, is like even probably older than maybe they started younger. But, at 18, they were considered adults, right? And actually brain science is now showing that our prefrontal cortex is actually still developing into our early 20s. So it makes perfect sense that we're still forming ourselves and that kind of thing. Okay, so independence looks different in all of these 4 planes. For that 0 to 6 child, it's actually mostly about functional independence. So if you've been working at introducing Montessori in your homes and families with babies or toddlers or preschoolers, it's all about learning how to maybe get themselves dressed, or how to make themselves a snack, how to water the plants, very functional kind of things around the house. And they get so pleased when they've done it. They're already learning how to contribute to our household. So they feel very pleased with themselves. They develop amazing executive functioning skills, which is basically learning a sequence of steps. And that capacity helps you then become a functioning human in our society. It's also not just about independence, but it's about you in society. If you can take care of yourself, you can also take care of others, and you can take care of your environment. So I think that's really important, that there's actually a lot of connection involved with independence. And for those people who do find independence a bit of a dirty word, think of the word autonomy. We want autonomy. We want to be able to choose for ourselves. I think that maybe is a nicer word that people might be able to handle a little bit better.
Yeah.
And also I like to always say independence with responsibility, because it's not just about myself, but also me showing up and being responsible to, if I hurt somebody, that I will make it better, that I will repair it. Okay, so that's kind of like the first plane, 0 to 6. And then from 6 to 12, you have mental independence. The child's brain starts to change and they become rational thinkers. They've moved from the absorbent mind, where they're taking things in, to using a rational reasoning mind. And with that, they want mental independence. They don't want you to tell them the answers. They really, if they hadn't already told you, they really want to work it out for themselves. And what's really fun about this age, well, I think it's fun, but some people find it frustrating, is that they really want to challenge you about everything, because they realize the world's not black and white. There's a lot of gray. So for example, your family might go to church, and another family might go to synagogue, and another family might not do anything around the holidays at all. And they start to wonder, why do they do things differently in different families, for example? So they're into the moral questioning. And then I'm flying through this. There's really a lot more I could say about each of them, but I want to get to you. We've got lots of questions that have come in, and this is an opportunity. You'll also be able to put up your hands and ask questions as well. And then from the third plane of development, those 12 to 18-year-olds, they're starting to get into social and economic independence. So everyone knows the idea that, teenagers like to be around their peers more than their adults, except to say that adults are still very important, and we are the home base for them to come back to. But also economic independence becomes really important. And it's not because they want to earn a lot of money. It's actually more about them starting to practice being an adult. So they're trying it out. And like my son, for example, he worked for €3 an hour at the cinema. But he got to see what it was like to be in different positions of responsibility in that role. He had the feeling that he was contributing, and he was earning a little bit of money, a little bit of pocket money, which didn't hurt, to buy his own lunch in school and things like that. So he's trying it out. And when he spends too much money and then he doesn't have enough money for something else, they're kind of getting that kind of idea. And then from 18 to 24 years old, it's all of those things. They get it becoming like a member of society. So the functional independence is important. Mental independence, because they're starting to think, are all the values that I incorporated in my home, in my family, are they all the ones that I picked up in my years living at home? Are they also my values? So they might, for example, if you were a plant-based family and you were eating mostly plant-based, don't be surprised if your child is no longer vegan when they move out of home, because they want to try, oh, is that actually my value? And then they might actually, I think it's nice when they start to go, actually, I'm eating more plant-based again. So just, things like that. And then spiritual independence and moral independence, like, what do I think about my bigger, higher values and that kind of thing they're exploring as well. So I hope that gives you like a little bit of an oversight of how a child's independence grows and changes during that enormous span of years. And yeah, just enjoy whatever stage you're at right now, and we will dive into your questions. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your digital hand, and we will get to your question. We also have some that came in via Instagram and
and you can also unmute yourself and come on camera if you're okay. This will be streamed on YouTube. I will put it on YouTube, so just fair warning. But yes, you're more than welcome to put your camera on, unmute yourself, and have a conversation about independence. Thank you for that quick little recap, Simone, about independence. And it's interesting because you and I both have children in the fourth plane, I realized as you were describing. Very independent young adults, right?
Yeah, exactly. We've been through all the planes, so we can tell you all of it. Well,
exactly.
No, not only from the families we work with in classes and things, but also as
our own experience
in it with you along the way. So why don't we take one of the questions that came in before the call, and then you can warm up. You can drop your question in the chat. You can raise your digital hand. I'm not sure, Robin, about sending it on WhatsApp now. Not sure what that is. Okay, I think it might be from a different chat. All right.
So there is one question that came in from Mali, and there's three questions. We'll go through all of them. When big feelings swell up, what's recommended to help ensure my child can sufficiently cope independently while also feeling my loving care? And I think this is for a 3-year-old, right? So for me, again, big feelings are hard to handle, and they need our support to be able to, be capable of self-regulating and dealing with them. But at the beginning, that's going to be a learning experience. So validate the big feelings. I see that you're having some big feelings, you're having some big emotions, and I'm here for you. For me, that's really all that we can really do. We can help them process it, maybe try to understand why they're having this big feeling. Did somebody take a toy away? Did they, is their red cup dirty and they have to use the blue cup? Whatever is going on is really just with a lot of empathy and compassion, just validating that, you have a big feeling. And also for me, it's also sometimes modeling. So if we're having a big feeling about something, we can verbalize it, right? And have kind of model emotional vocabulary from a very young age. Do you want to add to that, Simone?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think co-regulation is the piece still for a 3-year-old. I don't think that many 3-year-olds handle their big feelings independently at this stage. And I love actually Nicole Holtfluer, we can share the post, just posted on Instagram recently about independence, and we wrote about it in the Montessori baby quite a lot as well, that you start with dependence. The baby, they're dependent on you for moving them across the room and all those kind of things. Then you start collaborating with them, and then you move to independence and your scaffolding skills along the way. So basically, if you always rub their back and say, I'm here for you, you might be surprised that sometimes when you're having big feelings, they might start to rub your back too, and so pass that on. So they're definitely picking up the way that you respond. But handling all the big emotions, by themselves, it doesn't always happen. But you might find that sometimes they usually get frustrated when they drop everything. And this time they actually managed it. They went, when they let out a big breath and they managed. So I think by repetition, by showing them that you're available, and also when big feelings mean that they flip their lid, has Dan Siegel in The Whole Brain Child, talks about flipping your lid, and this is like your brain, and when you flip your lid and you're having like a tantrum, you can't even hear what anyone's saying. So we can offer reassuring words, but we can't really get them to think about what happened. Like, oh, you're like, if we start saying, yeah, it's okay, you know, I mean, don't be upset, it was just a toy, or your sister just wants it, or she's just a baby. They can't hear you, right? So we have to first help them to calm down, co-regulate with them to help them, you know, get re-regulated, and then we'll be able to help them to take responsibility. Like if they had big feelings because they broke something, and then we will show them how that they repair that. Or if they're having big feelings because something got broken or damaged, then there can be a repair that happens after that moment.
And I would add that one tool that is extremely important is just to offer some hugs, just being able to be held and to, like Simone says, to co-regulate your breathing, your calming presence. So sometimes that may seem kind of counterintuitive, like they're maybe having this big emotion and you're pretty upset about it and all this. But if you can self-regulate, calm yourself, and be able to offer this loving presence, that's really important. All righty. So the second question from May is, my 3-year-old often says, I can't. Insert task here, when he can and has done so before. What's that about? So I know what that's about. For me, it's really about saying I need more connection time. Oftentimes our children have shown us that they can, you know, fully get dressed on their own, or, you know, put on their shoes or put their toys away, whatever task that they've been doing, and suddenly is like, oh, I can't, right? And that is really all they're saying is, I just need to have some connection time. I need you know, connection. And so for me, it's really about not taking it personally and not like, you know, shaming them in any way of like, oh, you can do this, just go do it. It's like, you can just say, oh, today you're not really feeling like doing this. I know you can do this, but today I can help you. You know, do you want me to put on the right shoe and you put on the left shoe? Like, have some again, you know, just loving compassion. Like I always say, you know, to the families I work with, is like, I know how to, you know, cook dinner and do the dishes very well. Do I always want to do it? No. There are some days where it's like, oh, can you do it? Like, oh, I can't. So it's also about just being okay with children having their moods, right? We tend to put children on these high standards of, because they've shown they are capable of doing it on their own, they have to consistently do it on their own every day. So just have fun with it. Be, you know, use humor and be okay with that. So
I would agree with you, Jeanne-Marie, and I think that most of the time it is that situation where they're wanting more connection. And then I often just say, oh yeah, I can give you a hand, and I give them as little help as possible, but as much as necessary. So I really just like might come and sit next to them, and then they take over more and more themselves, as opposed to, oh, I'll do it for you, and then you just end up taking over the whole process, because then they're just learning, oh, if I don't want to do it, then my, you know, caregiver takes over and does it for me. The other thing I would say is, if it's a repetitive thing, I would always be observing to see actually what the situation is, because say that our system is like, when we're base regulation and we're regulated, we can do more things, right? But if we notice they're really like not coping with things, then we can kind of give them compassion. Okay, they've been a bit under the weather, they haven't slept well, we've been traveling, you know, all these kind of things, and we can give them a bit more grace. But if they're always asking, oh, mama, you do it, papa, you do it, you know, that kind of thing, then I would be like, okay, what's going on here? Is the house set up for them to be independent? Is it a power struggle? Are they seeing that how I handle this kind of thing? So these are other things, situations that could come up. Does it happen at a certain time of day, so that you can adjust your response accordingly? So I just put in our little Montessori observation piece in there as well, to make sure that we're
definitely well. Definitely. We have Pascal here who has come online. Pascal, did you have a question or comment you wanted to share?
Do you see a hand up? Do you?
No, I see a face. Pascal has put her camera on, maybe by mistake, but
Okay, it's good. You can have your camera on. We like seeing your face. That's
yes,
better.
yes. Okay.
Maylee says that's helpful. Thanks. Affirm and offer as little help as possible. I'll also try to look for a pattern. Perfect.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And
So
I'll read the last one, which, oh yes. Did you?
yeah, I was going to read the last one from
Yeah.
the same person, May, who, which is a great question. What behaviors on my part undermine my child learning a healthy dose of independence?
Yeah, I love this question because I think this is actually really what we can do as Montessori adults the most, right? Is the part that we play in our child being independent, that kind of thing. So I always say we can be an obstacle, so we're always in Montessori looking for obstacles to our child's independence and looking for obstacles to their development. And sometimes we are the obstacle ourselves. So it might be because we're doing too much for them. We're not treating them to be capable. I was speaking with a friend and their children don't know how to cook, even though they're 7 and 11. You're like, okay, this is interesting. When you don't grow up around Montessori people, you forget that children can do these things. So it's kind of like interesting that we're already so far along the path, but how can we, make sure that we continue not to be an obstacle? The environment can be an obstacle to their independence. So for example, if we haven't had time to set up a little area, and no judgment if you haven't had time to, set up an area by your front door where they can take off their shoes, where they can hang up their own coats, where they can put their bag, or if you haven't had time to arrange your kitchen so that they can reach the things themselves, then that can be an obstacle. So us setting up the environment, allowing enough time, I think, can be an obstacle to independence, because when we're rushing all the time and we're trying to get out the door and we're overscheduled our days and weeks and weekends, then you'll find that independence suffers as well, because we need time for those skills to build. So they're the first few that jump to mind for me. And you, Jeanne-Marie?
And I think it's just that mindset really of knowing that children are extremely capable. So trusting that, right? Trusting the process, that again, we've often said that it's not the end goal, but it's the process. So just, like you just said about giving them time, but also just, yeah, I mean, for me, it's about really trust, that trust in your child, trust in yourself, that you're setting up the environment, you're observing also, right? Because if there are things that maybe they want to be doing, but they don't have, for example, one thing that I often see in the home consultations I do is access to water. As simple as that, right? Children need to be washing their hands on their own, especially when they're going through toilet independence and all of this, but there's no access to water. There's no stool for them to actually get up. They're dependent on an adult to pick them up to wash their hands. So be observant of all the things that you might be doing for them inadvertently and how you can empower them to do it for themselves, and really kind of setting up the environment. But for me, it's really that mindset. And I did want to say earlier that for me, independent really starts at birth. It's all, again, it's that mindset of that the birth is a collaborative work. It is the child and the parent, the birthing parent, that they also have a very important task to do, right? To go through that birth canal and come out. And that is the beginning of independence, right? Is being able to do that for themselves. And then from day one of letting them, struggle to get a toy, to look at things, to not always be doing things for them is to me what is really, really important. So yes.
I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, right, as well, because independence, I think some people think that means that the kid has to do everything and we're just like off doing our own thing. And it's actually really not. We're often doing things side by side, or I might be doing my thing, or they might be helping me. And I think that's important to realize, is that there's still a lot of connection that happens in our Montessori homes. It's not that everyone goes off and does their own thing or something like that.
Right. We can be completely, connecting and be completely independent. I see even as an adult, I'm I'm extremely independent. So is my husband. We're both working from home. We have our own home offices, but multiple times a day we come, we connect, we talk, we share, and then we go off into our own little universe. And that's the same thing for the child, is to be able to also continue you being independent, right? You continuing to do what brings you joy and pleasure and so forth when you become a parent. It's not always easy, but to to have that mindset and to say, oh, I need to be doing this work on my own right now, or I'm going to go to my Zumba class or whatever it is. It's like showing that you are also independent, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Okay, let's keep going in.
And I'll just add one more thing, is when a child tells you, I can do it, or I want to do it on my own, that's where that trust comes in, right? Where you really have to set aside your fears, your worry, your anxiety. And I have multiple examples as a parent myself of that, where there's some situations where it's like, okay, take a deep breath. But for me, it's trusting that this is what they need to be doing, and this is what's going to bring them this notion of being capable. So yes.
Oh, one thing that's really beautiful, one example that comes to mind that Junifer shared in our book, which was like when her third child was born and they were sleeping in a floor bed in their home in Nigeria, she would crawl out of the bed when she woke up from a nap and come and find the family. That's the trust, right? That they're capable, they're independent, they don't feel left out, they just come and find the family. And it's actually a really beautiful part. They're independent, they don't have to cry to be woken up, and they come and find you. And one thing we haven't actually mentioned is attachment. You need actually a very strong attachment for your child to want to be independent, because they need to feel safe before they try any of this anyway. So attachment and independence aren't mutually exclusive. They actually are important components together.
Very important components, yes, because you need a secure attachment base to be able to feel capable and independent. So definitely go ahead.
There's some really good comments coming in the chat. Anna says, I might also add to this that it might also depend on the child's temperament. Some will always want the proximity of the adult, even if they are totally capable and can do it independently.
Yes.
So observe how far and how close do you need to be. Like I even say, if they're always wanting you, but can you even just scoot back 10 centimeters as you're observing them play or being in that space? And then can I just pop to the kitchen and put on the kettle and come back? And then I'll pop it to the kitchen and wait for my cup of tea and come back. You can build skills that way as well. Maylee says, thanks both for addressing all my questions. The specificity really helps, Simone. Thank you. And Anna says, and that if we as adults even hint at an expectation from them to do can result in resistance, especially around 2 to 3 years old.
So
Interesting.
Right? Yes, so true.
Maylee says, also appreciate the analogy at Jeanne-Marie that I'm capable of many things and appreciate a hand sometimes. Going back to what Anna says as well, as our preparation of an adult, we have to see what things trigger us, because if we are expecting some things, there's so much work that we need to do. Like, why have I got so much expectation? Is it because I was parented that way, that I was expected, or that I got in trouble if I didn't do that, and now I'm having a hard time if they do things for themselves? I think it's really cute, actually, because in Montessori we do want to raise capable children, and usually in the young age we're pretty excited, when our child can dress themselves and they're all these kind of things. But we don't like it when they have an independent idea about what needs to happen next. And so I think that's always an interesting one too.
Yeah, no, a lot of work on ourselves about that, because like I was saying about the trust, it's why are you letting your anxiety or your fear get in the way of your child being independent, right? For example, my son, he's an extreme sport athlete. I mean, if it was up to me, I would say, oh no, you don't need to be doing that. But it's like, that's his passion. Why would I get in the way? So I have to, work on myself, take some deep breaths, send him lots of love and all of that, and just keep at it. So yes. Okay.
I've got a question for you that came in via Instagram, Jeanne-Marie.
Okay.
It says, how to move your kid towards independence when they are, in inverted commas, shy or cautious in social situations? What would you suggest?
I would first take away those labels that shy and all that tends to be maybe sometimes negative, that they are maybe a very introverted person and they just need time to observe. So again, I would maybe sit with them for a little bit and talk with them about what they're seeing, what they're observing, and just giving them time to warm up. Some children take a long time to warm up, others not at all. So it's really about just honoring their character, their temperament, and just seeing it for what it is without needing to label it in any good or bad, right? It's yes, they're shy, so what? They're cautious, they're and that's okay. When it becomes something that is really like getting in the way of having healthy life and relationship and all that, then yes, maybe we can look a little deeper and seek some professional advice. But when it is just kind of normal behavior in a sense of for me, for example, I mean, I'm a 62-year-old woman. I take time to warm up. I have this event I'm going to this evening. I know myself. I'm going to be, observing for a little bit, and then I'll feel comfortable going and talking to somebody. I'm going with a girlfriend who is just, walks in a room and can start chatting it up with anybody. That's just personalities, and they start young. So be okay with that.
One thing I'd add to that as well is being able to build the social skills. So I think what Jeanne-Marie talked to was acknowledging them and letting them be themselves, which is great. And then I think what I wish I had started early with my daughter was really actually practicing, how do I introduce myself and say hello and say happy birthday and those kind of things. Also giving them the language like, I don't feel like talking right now, I need some time to warm up. It's kind of grace and courtesy lessons that we can give, but we can already model that in the 0 to 3 years, and then by 3 to 6 you can practice them. So I started closer to 4 and I felt it was a bit late, but like we'd be on the bike on our way to a birthday party and we would be practicing saying, gefeliciteerd met de verjaardag van je zoon, which means like, congratulations on the birthday of your son, which is what you say when you turn up to a birthday party in Holland. And so we'd be practicing it so that by the time we walked in the door, she'd kind of roll in, splurt it out, and then go and find things. The other thing that I think was also really helpful with children who do take time to warm up or need some more introverted time is to, when you do go to social occasions, say, oh, I've noticed that there's a book corner over here. I guess if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's a place that you could go and get your space. Or would you like to come and sit by me while with the adults while I'm talking, and you can, go and join the kids whenever you want to. And I just make it really boring. I don't entertain them. I just make it really boring for them, but they're welcome to stand by me for as long as they like. So that you're building safety, you're building skills, and they can also be themselves. I think those 3 things I'd find really, important. There's also a book I'll drop in the chat, which is Quiet the Power of...
Yeah, and what you say also about like preparing them, I really like that of just doing some role plays at home, right? Mm-hmm. If you're seeing that can be kind of get in the way of them enjoying themselves or whatever, then yes, role play. But I guess for me, what I was trying to say is also that be okay with your child not being a social butterfly, that there's some children that will be social butterflies and others who are introverts and just don't want to interact with other people, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually some really good questions in here. So my son feels that if he doesn't get help, he doesn't get love. How do I gently incentivize? And then unfortunately, Instagram's cut off the rest of that, but you kind of get the idea. Isn't that interesting that the son feels that if I don't help, I don't get love? Have you ever had that, Jeanne-Marie?
If I don't help?
If he doesn't get help, then he doesn't feel loved. It's
right. Like, which is going back to that initial question we had of I can't do it. That is just, a child who is just needing some extra connection. It doesn't feel like they're being taken care of. And that, I don't know where that comes from. Is it that, you know, early on we did everything for them, and then suddenly, because they've, you know, changed a birthday, we suddenly have expectations? Who knows what that comes from? Or did, you know, somebody tell them something? But to me, that's why it's so important to really acknowledge and have compassion when you can't do something on your own, even though we know you can, right? It's just like, oh, you're feeling, you know, you're feeling like you need a hug before you can do it. Or, you know, maybe it's a cue for you to have a little bit extra special time with them, right? In positive discipline, we talk a lot about creating some ongoing special time with our children to really fill up their emotional bucket. So maybe that's what this child needs, right? Is to just have that emotional bucket filled up.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like if we start the morning with those cuddles or reading a book together, then we might get more, you know, success when we're, you know, helping them to get dressed more independently and all those kind of things as well.
Definitely. Would
There was
you
a good
like, wait,
Yeah, there was a good question
sorry, go ahead.
There was a good question that came in from Jackie about the environment. How do you balance and organize activities for a 1 and 3-year-old? And I guess we could focus that question on our topic of independence. So have you got some thoughts?
Well, so from what I understand, there's 2 children. One is 3 and there's a 1-year-old. And here we're going to want to help that 3-year-old have that independence, right? Because they're older, they're able to do maybe more intricate work that might be, you know, deemed maybe not safe for the younger one. So we're creating an environment where they can independently go get things for themselves. And for the 1-year-old, we're placing things lower for them so that there is this sense of they can both do it independently. I would also encourage that we give the vocabulary to the 3-year-old about, you know, not messing up my work, or not like having those boundaries. Like in the Montessori classroom, we don't have 1-year-old and 3-year-olds, right? Because we have them in developmental ages where they kind of all understand the boundaries, right? And in that, for example, 3 to 6 classroom, we have work rugs and we have our tables, and we know that that is my boundary. That is where my work ends, and you do not interrupt my work. At home, that's a lot harder. So that's why we need to really help the 3-year-old to be able to say, you know, you can use something else, or no, or give them a space where they can be able to work independently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you didn't have 2 children, I think, you know, how we set up our homes for the children to be independent is super important, because, you know, let's move to the older children. If they want to leave the house and they forget their guitar and they've got guitar practice, you know, so we need to set up our homes so that it's easy for them to locate their musical instruments, so that they can find their sports equipment, so that they know where everything belongs. And you have also, because order is not such a big thing, particularly like for the 6 to 12-year-old child, even adolescents, you know, they're not very good at, you know, keeping things clean. But if we can set up our space so that there is order, then they have more chance of finding things for themselves. And if I always put my things back where they belong, like the sticky tape or something like that, then they can find those kind of things. Or we set up an art area so they can go and be independent. And one of my favorite things about setting up an environment for 6 to 12-year-olds is having a nice set of supplies where there's paper and markers and some maybe beautiful kind of art materials, so that they can create magazines and comic strips and secret clubs and invitations and cards and, you know, all of these kind of things that just spark their creativity. They can make paper chains and paper planes and things. They need big work and spread out a lot of places. And how do you manage that for them to be independent? But I'm just thinking, like, if a child says you're bored, I just posted something on Instagram this week, like, you always say I'm bored. Well, like, one important thing you can do for them to be independent is to have this rich learning environment where there's got lots of opportunities for hands-on exploration and things that they can take their imagination into big places for that 6 to 12-year-old child as well.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So I have another question about a 27-month-old boy who's extremely clingy towards his dad. He wants to be in his arms, carried and cuddled constantly. And this is a third child. He is otherwise independent, confident, and sociable. Is there any reason for that? Anything we can fulfill? And what approach is the best in this case? Daddy is getting nervous after over 2 years of being constantly unable to do anything with both hands. It has got to the point where he feels like he's abusing him. We would welcome our son to become independent in this area. Any suggestions for that?
Wow. I mean, I'd love to observe the situation because it's hard to know exactly what's going on with the dynamic. But I imagine it's a busy house with, you know, 2 older siblings who take a lot of space and energy and can talk verbally and those kind of things. And this little one is probably finding that they have a very strong connection with this papa and think, okay, that's how I can get my need for love and being seen and that care. I have a lot of compassion for both parents because it must be difficult to manage that dynamic in the family. It's putting obviously a lot of pressure because then it's the same with any situation. And when it repeats, we start to, again, with our work on ourselves, it starts activating us. And then you already start to feel nervous instead of, okay, how can I be a calm and clear guide right now? How can I fill up their cup and also be able to use my 2 hands? Yeah, you really want me to pick you up and I'm preparing the dinner right now. You can talk to me here. You can stand on the seat next to me, but I can't hold. Yeah, you're really sad about that. You really wanted me to hold you. I'm preparing this. And as soon as I'm finished, I'm going to give you a hug. But it's just being like, I don't have any problem with like continuing to do what I need to do. So that papa needs to kind of, I think, be kind and clear. So just, it's always doing it with love, but it's okay for them to be a little bit upset if we know we've done everything we can, then we're like, okay, now it's time for me to put you down and I'm going to do my things. And that voice, you know, it comes from my belly. It doesn't come from my throat. You know, when we kind of put on this, it's okay like this. And this is actually not, the child does not feel calmed by my little tiny voice up here. They want someone who is down here and just can be kind and clear.
I love that. Like somebody who is grounded and who knows that this is okay. And as well as saying, you know, I need to do this, maybe inviting them to participate and I could really use your help, or, you know, I need both my hands to be able to do this and I could really use your help. So giving them that, you know, what we call significance and belonging when they're there. And, you know, I would also say that a third child, that's often, you know, kind of the baby of the family. And we need to look at ourselves too. Are we interacting with this child maybe a little differently than we did with the 2 first ones? Things like that. So yeah, wonderful.
I've got another one from Instagram. Should we do that?
Okay. Yes, sure.
And I've also just invited people, if anyone live on the call has a question, feel free to jump on. You're welcome to turn on your camera and put up your hand or drop something in the chat. Actually, I'll answer this one. Someone said, in your book, The Montessori Toddler, you say that you should have breastfeeding, maybe limits, I think. I can't read it. How does this align with following the child/baby-led weaning? So I think what I wrote about in the Montessori toddler is that we will be kind of clear on, it's the same as mealtime. Okay, let's take breastfeeding out of the question, but in mealtime. So I have limits to when we provide meals. I don't have snacks all day available. I have like 3 meals a day. And if a child wants something outside of that, then we have a limited number of snacks that are down low and for them to be able to help themselves. So following the child would be observing what time my child needs, how much they generally eat. So I make sure that there's enough food in the house, and baby-led weaning, that kind of idea is the child being able to do it for themselves. So I think it's the same with breastfeeding. It's kind of like, rather than feeding them all day, you can do demand feeding. That's obviously, everyone has their personal choices and things like that. But Montessori is more about using breastfeeding and using food as nourishment, and things like connection or co-regulation and all those kind of things are done by hugs, kind voices, and those kind of things. So that rather than you fell down, here's a cookie, or you fell down, here's my breast, It's like, you fell down. Can I help you? Do you need any help right now? So that's the difference, I think, with the Montessori approach to just the on-demand feeding. I think on-demand feeding when they're hungry, great. When they're on-demand feeding because it's just the way that you give your care, that's slightly different from me personally. But I'm sure that that varies a lot with every Montessori educator and how they see it. But yeah, hopefully that kind of clarifies it for that person.
Yeah. There is another question about, so this was about, so there's one about conflicts on the playground. Do we want to tackle that in independence?
Yeah, let's do it.
How much, when should I intervene while my son has a conflict with another child? For example, sharing a toy, sometimes his own toys, sometimes the toys of other children. Should I let him solve it independently or should I do something? So I will give my 2 cents on this. I will say observe. If you take time and let things be, oftentimes they will resolve these situations on their own, right? As a 2-year-old and 10-month, sharing is not in their realm of emotional literacy or maturity, and so they end up figuring it out. If there is a altercation or there's that somebody's going to get hurt, definitely intervene and get in the way. And there you can kind of sportscast and say, oh, you wanted the same toy and so, and you're both wanting the same toy. What would you like to do about it, or offer a solution and so forth. But most of the time I feel that as adults, we want to intervene. We want to kind of, police the situation, like you should be sharing, you need to be nice and all of this. And that kind of gets in the way. Simone, what do you think?
Yeah, I think in our Montessori playgroup, we have very clear kind of guidelines about how we share. We share by taking turns, and that can really help. And I model the same phrase all the time, like it will be available soon, so that the child who's having their toy taken away, they can kind of put their hands on it. It will be available soon. And we're scaffolding the skills so that they can manage more independently. When I first finished my Montessori training, I definitely think that I thought that because that rule was very clear, that I would have to hold that up all the time. So anytime someone came near another child, I kind of really wanted to preserve that child's concentration, because that is very important in a Montessori classroom. But over the years, now that I've been running my own classes for 15 years, I think that I've been much more relaxed about observing first to see how they're managing by themselves. And then I'll just step in if I see that the conflict's kind of arising, because sometimes what happens is they actually get along and they actually manage to do it themselves. So I think it's always based on the dynamics of the situation. And the playground is kind of different to a Montessori playgroup because everyone's got different rules, right? And so say your child was playing with a bucket and someone else took the bucket off them and there's no other parent around, then I might help my child to say, oh, that's my bucket. It will be available soon, or to intervene and say, oh, that's my bucket, I'd like it back now. And so in particular, a child who might find that harder, they can put their hands on the hips, you can help, model the language for them, and you can help intervene in that situation. Because if your child just stands there and watches someone else take the bucket, then they don't feel like they've got the skills to manage it. Does that make sense? So
yes,
I'm always kind of based. And also what I like though in the opposite situation is, say your child takes something off someone else, then I would model like acknowledging that child. Oh, you were playing with that and my child took it. Yeah, you can say it's, it'll be available soon, or that's my bucket. And then the other parent will also hear that I'm acknowledging that my child has taken their thing. They're not having an easy time giving it back right now, but I'm there to kind of like be the mediator and to acknowledge that feeling. I guess that's kind of how I manage those situations. I kind of do a lot of translating, particularly for a child who's 2 years and 10 months. Yes, they're becoming a bit more articulate, but like Jeanne-Marie says, like they're not able to always navigate these social situations perfectly, because many of us adults also can't navigate these situations very, well as either. So
yes, very true. Very true. There's a question that came in from somebody who's live with us, Marco, who's a dad of an 18-month-old who says that he loves the Montessori, him and his wife love the Montessori method and love your book, Simone. But they are struggling with the grandparents. So what would be something that to help the grandparents understand that the child doesn't need to always be entertained or distracted? So for me, Marco, I would say, have them read Simone's books for one. Is important, like to understand that parenting is evolving, right? We're understanding things about brain development, about emotional regulation, all of this that is evolving. So their method, they did the best they could, in their day and age. And today you're wanting to parent a different way, and you would like to, have them respect the way that you are trying to raise your child. And really, maybe have them also observe how you're interacting, how you're speaking to your child, and so forth. That's where I would start. First of all, is modeling, and then really just, in a very loving, grateful way, is sharing with them kind of the what you're learning, and that you would appreciate if they would kind of go along with that. If that makes sense. Simone,
Yeah,
anything to add? Because I know this question comes up a lot.
Yeah, I think we have it covered each live call, because, and it is important, right? Because we get these, like we see how helpful it is to our families, and then we see our parents doing it the opposite. And I guess my question is, Marco, you can be welcome to answer right now, but when I answer this, I kind of say, how often is this grandparent in their life? Are they a primary caregiver? Do they see them once a week and they're looking after them? Because then I'd be having regular parenting meetings with them to say, are we all on the same page? Are we all reacting in the same ways? And then you're really like collaborating. You don't have to come with your rules, be like, oh, this is what I found really helpful when they're upset, as opposed to, like the kind of distracting techniques. Oh, actually, I learned in my Montessori class that when I distract them, they're actually not really regulating their system. And then the next thing kind of gets them upset. And so what I found more helpful is to actually let them cry, but I'm there to support them. I offer a hug and those kind of things. Sometimes they push me away, but I'm showing them there. And then once they're calm, then they are over it and they're all back to their jolly self again. So that's what I found helpful. What have you found helpful, and having these conversations with them? If they don't see them very often, I kind of let grandparents spoil them a bit, and, they're showing love in their different ways. And am I going to change someone who's, already in their 60s and above? Probably not, but I think what Jeanne-Marie says is, like, when we keep modeling it and they see that it's, their child is becoming very capable and those kind of things, that's kind of, it's a drip, drip, drip method. If they're open to learning more, then maybe I'd send them a podcast episode, or if they like reading a book, read a book, or an article, or those kind of things. So hopefully, Marco, that gives you a bit of ideas, but having compassion for them too, because I think, as Jeanne-Marie said, like, we're doing it differently than they did, and they often take that as a judgment that we didn't like the way they parented us, and that's not true. We just got some more information now, and I hope that helps.
Definitely. Or have them read one of Dr. Montessori's books, because that is, to me, very enlightening of just what children need from us adults. So good luck, Marco. and I will second what Simone was saying. Like, if it's just, seeing the grandparents every once in a while, let them be, silly, goofy grandparents who might give them a little bit too much sugar and a little bit too much toys, because it is temporary and it is their way of really loving up on their grandchildren. So,
Jeanne-Marie, did you see Mei Lee's comment as well? It goes back to when we were talking about, I think, the papa not being able to do anything. Her line, when my toddler is asking for the unreasonable, I tell him that my hands are busy right just now. And he started using the same line with me. I like that. My hands are busy right now.
Yeah, I like that. So there's a question here in the comments from Kavita, and she says, my 5-year-old often tells me I can do it myself, but sometimes I think she needs some help. How to approach this? This is, to me, what we were talking about earlier, is trusting. If your child tells you they can do it, let them. They might make a mistake. They might mess it up, but that's part of the process. Like, give them that trust that they have of themselves, right? It's kind of almost like I was I kind of promised myself when I was expecting that I would never tell my child, be careful, you're going to hurt yourself. Because again, that's us kind of projecting onto them what they're capable of doing. And if they want to, start climbing something or whatever, if they're feeling confident that they can do it, then we need to let them. We can be there, we can spot them, we can, but don't like project your fears onto them. So for a 5-year-old, to me, if the child is telling you, I can do it, say, oh, I'm sure you can, go for it. Like, I trust you and I'm here for you if you need help. That's all we can do, right? And really be mindful of what it is that you're feeling when you say, I think she needs help.
Yeah. And I think the thing that comes to mind is like my 14-year-old saying, oh, I'd like to go to the concert by myself. So I'm saying, okay, I think she wants to go to the concert by herself. She thinks she can handle that with her friend, that kind of thing. And my job as her parent is to keep her safe. So if it's a safety thing, a bit like you were saying, you can spot and those kind of things, you'd be collaborating with the child. Oh, you really want to do that? And it's my job to keep you safe. How can you do that? And we keep you safe. And then with a 5-year-old, you can definitely dialogue and come up with some great ideas for, she wants to be able to cook the pizza all by herself. Okay, I want you to be able to do that. And I need to make sure that you know how to use the stove properly, all those kind of things. So I think it's a yes and. Yeah.
So Marco answered and he says, thank you both. We're living abroad. So when we are visiting, we usually stay for weeks. So you're staying with your in-laws or with your parents, and that can be, another layer of difficulty because you're in their environment and so forth. But there, I would really just, model as much as you can and really show them how you've been interacting with your child, and ask for support in doing the same.
I think also if you are going for a few weeks, you could have like a parenting meeting. You could say, oh, look, I know we're coming and we're going to be in your space and we do things, certain ways. And I'd love to be able to find a way that it's good for everyone, so that, so maybe you could be open to doing that and being much more collaborative. Might be a fun way to approach the conversation, as opposed to always correcting, because in Montessori, we say teach by teaching, not by correcting. So when a child gets something wrong, we just make a mental note and then we talk, we'll show them again later. And so the same can happen if our parents just feel like we're nagging them all the time. Oh, I told you not to say good job, and and correcting them all the time. They're also going to feel like a bit disheartened, like I can't do anything right. And so instead, we could just make a mental note and talk to them about later, or have a fixed time in the week where how's it going? What things are going well? What things need to be better? And it could be actually a really light, joyful conversation. So that's something to think about too. Yeah, yes. Marco's loving the idea about family meeting. Mei Lee, thank you for coming. It was great to have you on here. The Child in the Family is a good book for the grandparents. A nice contribution from Pascal. Thank you, Pascal. And all right, we've got lots of questions coming in and we're at the top of the hour. Jeanne-Marie, how are you doing for time? Can we stay on for a few more?
We can stay on for a little longer, yes.
All right, so if anyone has to leave, thank you for joining us, and we will send you a recording to the rest of this when we finish. So
and it will also be up on our YouTube channel, so you can see it on the YouTube in a few hours, and also look up all the other shows that we've done in the past.
Yeah, fab.
Do you want to take this one that came in before the show? Was a very good one. Apart from the accomplishments the child feels when they become independent, what else helps them in the holistic development because of attaining independence? So I think you can speak to that, Simone.
Yeah, I think we touched on quite a few of these things at the beginning of the call when we talked about like what is independence in Montessori and things. And that big part of feeling capable. So like a baby, when they bat like a mobile and they make the connection, they're like, oh, I can do it, So they grow, and yes, it's a sense of accomplishment, but actually I'm constructing myself at that point. It's self-construction. And self-construction is a very important thing because it lets our child show us who they are as opposed to what I want them to be. And a toddler who can pour a glass of water for themselves is like, oh, I can look after myself, you know, and then it grows to a 3-year-old who can use the potty all by themselves. And that gives them a lot of capability. And they can pack their own bag and carry their own backpack into class and, you know, take off their shoes and get changed, all the things that, you know, make them feel empowered. Yes. I think I've also mentioned the executive functioning skills so that they can follow a sequence of events, that they're contributing to the family and to society. And that makes them feel like a valued member. Jeanne-Marie used the word once, and I really like this, and it's belonging. Belonging is very important. It's what gives us, it makes us want to live, really, basically, if you belong to a community. And in a Montessori classroom, we're trying to make every member of the classroom feel like they belong. You know, that difficult child, what do they value? Everyone has something that they contribute. So we want to pull that out as well. Independence. And then, being able to look after themselves, others, and the environment. I think we covered that.
And to me, it's the also just that initial, you know, we always talk about standing on two psychological legs of having trust in the world. So that is, you know, our parents responding to us when we're infants and so forth. But as our independence develop, it's trust in ourselves, like that we can do it. And that is, like, that's what we stand on for the rest of our life. So for me, that is like so critical to have, you know, that trust in my own capabilities. So important.
Yeah. I think it ends up supporting their whole development when they have that independence, because they can, if you think of all the parts that will make up, say, a 3 to 6 classroom, they've got mathematics and language and, you know, learning about other cultures and practical life, you know, to be able to make choices for yourself and all these things. It comes back to autonomy, basically, right? And independence.
Completely.
It's very important.
Completely. Do you want to do just one last question? Maybe you have from your
there's even 2 more in the chat here.
Okay.
Do you mind if we go back to these ones? Sylvia's asked, my daughter is 4 years old and she's been attending a Montessori setting since she was 2.5 years old. Sadly, we have now come to a point where we can't afford it anymore unless we remortgage the house, which I don't feel comfortable with. I feel like I'm failing her by even considering to switch to a traditional school when she's 5. Do you have any tips on how to make this transition? She loves her current school, and so do I. Thank you. So, and I think, oh, yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that, yes, I don't think we should need to remortgage our houses. I feel like that's a really difficult situation for you to be in when you know your daughter loves the school. And, you know, financially, it's not always possible to attend a Montessori school, which is why we're on these calls, right? Is how we can still use all these Montessori principles at home. So my children did do Montessori school. We live in the Netherlands where it's in the public system. So that made it affordable for us to continue. But even from 12, then I just continued to apply the principles at home, even while they went to traditional schools. And I felt like, yes, but they learned that there were differences in different places, and that all the skills that they were building at home, all our values and those kind of things, they rub off, you know, and school, they just learned that at school, yes, we might get punished for being late and those kind of things. Whereas at home, if they were late, then we would, you know, see how we could do it better next time and what went wrong, and, you know, always trying to make it better. And if someone was upset, then they'd make a repair and all those kind of things as well. So don't give up hope. My cousin, for example, moved to the country when her daughter was around the same age, and they were no longer in a Montessori school. But I met up with them recently, and the 18-year-old is definitely a Montessori child. It is in their bones, that beginning as well. And when you continue to, like, what was really beautiful is my cousin said to me, oh, I'm leaving it up to Ella and Charlie to decide where they're going to be, what we're going to be doing for that part of the trip. And I was just like, that's Montessori, right? It's like giving the children the autonomy to, decide the travel plans for that part of the journey. You know, so they were applying, it's very small, but it's so simple to apply these principles as they get older as well.
And I will add, Sylvia, to please not guilt yourself for what is happening. This is the circumstances. You have already given this immense foundation to your daughter of having had these, 4 years or two years in the Montessori environment. And like Simone says, that is the foundation. There's a lot of things that you can continue doing at home. And for me, having that foundation is really having given her the tools of adaptation, and she will adapt to this new environment. And yeah, there might be some days where she misses the old school, but there are new things in this new school that she's going to love. And I promise you, within a few weeks, she will have moved on. And, you know, children adapt easily to this new situation. And I say this from experience because I moved schools just about every other year. And I moved schools not only from a city to like different continents, and we adapt. And that's the beauty of it all. So don't guilt yourself or shame yourself. You've done beautifully.
And also, I think that guilt part is a big thing, because the children are always reading how we see the situation. And if they see us like doubting our decision, then they're going to pick up on it too. So just be like, oh, this is what's happened. We wish it could be the other way. And we're starting a new school, and these are all things. So again, parenting from down here, that voice is grounded and sturdy and knows what's going on. And we can be the leader. It'd be like a CEO of a company. You'd be kind of like, if they're not really sure about what's going on, you wouldn't really feel like in safe hands. Where if you have a CEO who is kind and clear, just, I keep saying kind because we're not bossy, we're not mean, we're not or dictating things, but we're just kind and clear. So I think that will, I think you're going to do beautifully.
Yes.
There's another question here from Francis. I'll read it to you, Jeanne-Marie.
Okay.
After successfully addressing the root cause of bottle aversion in a parent, how can they smoothly transition and introduce their 9-month-old to drinking from a cup? That's about independence too.
So this must be a guide that is talking. I'm not.
Yeah, maybe.
So wait, can you say that again?
Sure. It says, after successfully addressing the root cause of bottle aversion in a parent, how can they smoothly transition and introduce their 9-month-old to drinking from a cup?
That would be, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I mean, I think the question how I would address it is just to build the skills slowly. So a 9-month-old is still trying to drink. They're getting, many 9-month-olds can, but it's a process, you know, not all of the 15-month-olds who come to my class can drink from a cup at the beginning. So we first offer the cup a small amount of water in it, as much as you're happy to clean up. And if they're bottle feeding or breastfeeding alongside, then they have some of that. And then at other times, you could offer the glass for them. And then gradually they'll be drinking more and more from the glass. It's not like, I wouldn't stop the other and say, you can't have any drink, you have to drink from this cup. I think that's too dramatic. I think it's more like, at the moment they're dependent, then they collaborate, and then they'll become independent on that, you know, introducing a glass. That's how I kind of see that situation, but I might have misunderstood. Francis, does that answer the question? Let's have a look. Oh,
Sylvia, I'm Sylvia.
You. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, good.
And Sylvia says, thank you both. This is exactly what I needed to hear. Good.
Do you know there's 2 more questions that are on the
yes,
that
okay.
Before the call?
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
should we do? Oh, for some reason I've got balloons. Did anyone else just see that? I had balloons going up.
Yeah.
I must have said a magic word and balloons popped up. Okay, there's 2 more, and then we really are going to wrap up a little. Okay. At what age? Oh, sorry, I've got the squeakiest chair as well. Have you been squeak? At what age and how do you start creating a snack basket for your child to choose their snacks from? For context, I have an 18-month-old who is in a Montessori classroom during the day. I currently fill old baby food jars with snacks for her and let her choose between 2. However, I think that she is often hungry before I realize that, and so she gets hangry. I would love for her to be able to get a snack independently, but worry about, number 1, food waste if snacks are not stored in the fridge, and 2, the mess. Oh, I love this.
Yes. So for one, you know, maybe there are some snacks that you could prepare that don't need to be in the fridge that she could have easy access to. So you wouldn't worry about that. And then, yes, the mess, but that's part of it. That's part of the process. And then we show the child how to clean up, right? It's all part of that independent process. but I'm sure Simone has more because she got excited about this question.
I like this question because it's something that the parents go, oh, yeah, okay, I hadn't thought about this. But basically, there was a parent who said, my child loves cheese, but if they keep opening the cupboard, I'm opening the fridge all day and saying, I want cheese, and then I'm opening the door, I just don't like it. And I said, how much cheese would you be okay for them to have during the day? And she said, okay. I said, put that amount into a small box and they load it down in the fridge. And then you can open the fridge, they can take out their cheese. And then when the cheese is gone, you say, oh, the cheese is all gone today. I'll fill it up again tomorrow. And they might be upset, but the box is basically doing the job. So at 18 months, they may even be able to open the fridge depending on your situation. I know some Montessori families, I wouldn't do this, but they buy little small fridges for their children to be able to access them independently. I don't think it's necessary. But
No.
yeah, I would go for Jeanne-Marie's option, which is non-perishables. And I would start with things that aren't even that messy, like some raisins or something like this that are not going to make a big mess until you're comfortable, like scaffold. You don't have to put out things that are beyond what you make feel comfortable. It's not going to be helpful for your child to be stressed. So choose things that you feel okay with them being able to handle. Observation, observe how much your child eats during the day, how many snacks they need. So try it a certain amount. If you know she's still hungry, okay, I'm going to add a bit more the next day, so you can take notes. Okay, you can have fruit available, for example, down low, and see how many pieces of fruit that they need. I wouldn't put out a full fruit rail, but maybe 2 or 3 pieces and see how many they get through. That could be some starts. But I think having things down low and just put out as much as you're happy for them to eat for the day, and then adjust. It's always observe, adjust, observe, adjust, observe, adjust, and you keep going like that.
Yes. And the whole mess thing is also observing ourselves, like, why is it bothering us, and helping them clean up as well. So yes. So there, I think, is that it? Did you want to do one more, or are we done?
I just thought there's one more question coming, and they're just never going to stop, are they? We have to call it somewhere. Where are we going to stop? Should we? Okay, let's do. They're all coming in now. I don't know what to do.
Okay,
we're having a hard time deciding how to be kind and clear with you all. We want to answer all your questions, and we need to call it. Let's do one last one. We'll do Adriana's question. Hello, can we talk a little bit about independence in the potty? My 4-year-old knew how to potty, but now he simply didn't feel it, and I don't know how to help him and how to support him.
So we have a whole episode on toileting, for one. But this is again about really helping them. So maybe there's something going on in his life. I don't know if there's a new sibling, if there's been a move, a change, a death, something that has occurred in his life that might, have kind of get him off track. But here it's really, for me, it's about letting him know that you trust him and that that he's able to take care of himself and his bodily needs. And I would really, continue the same routine that you had before of, definitely not going back to any type of diapers during the day and so forth. And just, saying sometimes we have mishaps, and that's okay. And we clean it up, and we just really go along with it. I mean, there's regressions for different reasons, right? We don't always know. You might know because it's your child and it's the family, but to me it's again, it's just compassion. Simone?
Well, I agree with everything Jeanne-Marie said, and I think that if it was me, I would just want someone to continue to be like, oh, I'm sorry that that's happening for you and you're not feeling it, and I'm here to help you, support you. You could also go for a medical check to just check that nothing's going on, that there's a medical reason why they're not feeling it. And maybe just by getting the all clear from the doctor, that might also give them some more confidence. So I think that it's a very hard question to do without knowing more information about those kind of things. But hopefully that just gives you, like, yes, you're on the right track. Be supportive, like get them involved in the cleanup processes as well. Because a 4-year-old, they may just be feeling lazy and they don't want to do it anymore, right? That can, like, because sometimes the 2- and 3-year-olds who have mastered it, they're really good, and then they kind of get lazy. And so if they've pooped in their pants or there's a pee on the floor, We don't punish them, but we just say, oh, there's pee, let's go and, wipe that up right now. And actually, one beautiful thing that I'll give the example of, when I went to playgroup classes with my son 20 years ago, and I was in Fern sales class, there was a child who peed on the floor, and they were old enough for them to manage changing themselves and everything. And so Fern said, listen, here's your bag. All of your dry things are here. Here's some cloths when you're ready. And they spent 25 minutes taking off their trousers, wiping the floor, putting on the new clothes. And 25 minutes might feel like, well, what about all the other things you're meant to be doing? 25 minutes was a great investment in time because they're learning about how to care for their body. So I think that kind of comes full circle back to independence, is like when they feel in control of their body. So are you rushing it? Take as long as you need, give time, give patience, give love, give understanding, and maybe just check for medical help as well.
Yes.
Jeanne-Marie, we are going to hold it here. I'm sorry, I see more questions coming in, but we'll have to do this again soon.
Yes, definitely. We definitely will. We'll be back in 2024, and I hope you all have some wonderful holiday plans. I know I'm very excited. I'm going to have my daughter with me that hasn't been here for a very long time. So very much looking forward to that. Do you have plans, Simone?
Yes, I have just a cozy day with the family, and then I'm actually getting to travel to New York to visit a friend. And
Lovely.
so, yeah, I'm excited. And I'm looking forward to seeing some folks in the States in March as well, when we'll be traveling for our book events. So we'll keep you posted.
Definitely.
Thank you, everyone, so much for your time and your beautiful questions and your presence. And Jeanne-Marie, thank you as always.
Thank you.
And we will see you in 2024. All the best, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.